Today's session is about teaching methodologies. We are all here as teachers for
Good morning, ma'am.
primary.
Yes, ma'am.
Morning, ma'am. We are all here as teachers, and we all know the amount of respect and pride even our culture places on teachers. When children pray, they say Acharya Devo Bhava. They say teacher is equal to God. So they say Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, because we are the people who are going to show children the entire world, the knowledge of the world. That is how even ancient Indian culture treated teachers with a very high amount of respect. As teachers, we have an enormous responsibility to give up to that respect and reputation which the society places on us. And on that positive note, we will go into today's class. It is about teaching methodologies. So the last session, we broadly saw what was the curriculum. So once the government sets the curriculum and gives us the learning objectives which the child needs to meet at every stage, we read the learning outcomes and then move on to the next step, which is setting of the syllabus. That is what we saw the previous class. So after setting the syllabus, the next step for the teacher would be to take the syllabus, every part of the syllabus to the class, to the children, to her target audience, to her teaching. So this is the next step. It is through the teaching that we convey the knowledge and skill and expertise and their needed learning outcomes to each and every child in the class. So today's class will be about the different teaching methodologies that as teachers we can follow. So now generally we are teachers and we are teaching on an everyday basis, but let's see what is teaching. So teaching is not just a one-way lecturing process. I think all of you will agree with me. Teaching is not a one-way lecturing process. It is not that we have a particular script in our head and we walk into the class and then we tell whatever we want in that 40 minutes and then come out. That is not teaching. Teaching is not lecturing. It is rather a two-way process. So teaching is something like an engagement with learners. So we engage with the learners. That is the first and the foremost thing to do as a teacher. We should engage with the learner, get their attention, and then enable their understanding. So whatever we have in our mind, whatever skill we need to impart to them must be taught to them so that their understanding increases and they will be able to apply it to their knowledge through definite concept and processes. So the process by which that skill is imparted to them must be very clear. So teaching is an engagement with learners to enable their understanding and application of knowledge, concepts and processes. So what do we need so that in this process, so that the concept is very clear and their understanding and application also becomes fruitful? What do we need? We need to design the teaching. We need to design our teaching, and that's done through lesson plans. We need a design. We need content selection for the day. So what is that we are going to teach? So we need a design, content selection, delivery. So this is where the methodology comes. How are you going to deliver the content? Are you going to just say it to the children? Are you going to make it in an activity way? Are you going to conduct a quiz? Are you going to give them a project work? So it is the type of delivery which differs from topic to topic. And then we follow it with assessment and reflection. So,
Shobna, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
May I, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
As teachers, Shobna, ma'am has mentioned a few here. how should the teaching be and what are all the tools that are required for teaching. So as we are all teachers for so many years and we are all seasoned teachers, I would say that, can you all suggest what are all the tools apart from what is mentioned here to make teaching, learning more effective? Yes, teachers. How could the teaching learning process be made more effective? What are all the tools that
By
can
teaching
be
aids.
adapted? Yes, ma'am. Very good. Teaching
Very good.
aids.
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes.
Then,
Yeah, it should be
yes,
experimental
ma'am.
method,
I
ma'am.
truly agree with you, ma'am. As mathematics teachers, aids are very, very important and they play a greater role in making the learning process easier and concrete. Yes, ma'am. Then,
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That's what I too agree. It should be an experimental way. Students should explore and they have to do by themselves for learning. So it
yes,
should be long-term memory for them.
yes, ma'am. Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So teaching aids should be appropriate. That also we need to understand. The teaching aids, what we are using should be appropriate for that particular age. Just because we don't have that particular aids, we cannot just show it to the children and say that these things you will use it in the later classes, but anyway, I'm showing it here. They'll be wondering as to what and when they have to use it. For example, if you take an abacus, abacus is an important tool. It's an instrument and we also say it as a tool for teaching mathematics at the lower grades. So there are different types of abacus. I think all of us know about that. There are different types of abacus. Abacus to represent 3-digit numbers, 4-digit numbers, 5-digit numbers, and more than that also. Suppose if we get into a class 2 and we don't have an abacus which is representing 3-digit number. I have an abacus only representing 5-digit numbers. I just cannot walk into the class and show that abacus, keep the 2 other strings empty and keep showing these 3 strings with the beads in it. They'll be wondering as to why these 2 strings are there. Why is not ma'am using that? What if I put the bead in that string? So all these aids, whatever we are taking into the class, should definitely be appropriate for that age. That is very, very important. Just because we are not having that particular aid, we cannot replace it with some other aid which is not suitable for them and which cannot be understood by the children at that particular age. Yes, ma'am. Any other tool, teachers? One important tool is definitely teaching aids. Like yesterday, Shobna ma'am said, when we are teaching about time chapter, definitely we have to take in a clock, or in most of the classrooms, a clock is already there. So make use of that clock, or we have mathematical kit with clocks, small clocks where it is all adjustable with hour hand and minute hand. That has to be definitely taken for the formative years. Then,
Ma'am, through discussion, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Discussion.
Yes, very good, ma'am. Yes, it should be an interactive session. I would put it in that way. It should be definitely an interactive session, not a teacher going on writing on the blackboard or going on teaching in the class. And at the end of the class, when the bell rings, she cannot walk away from the class, assuming that the children would have understood what she has taught. Definitely, it should be an interactive session. Yes, ma'am. And that interactive session also sometimes should not be disadvantage for both the teachers and the students. That in the later part, Shobna ma'am will definitely speak about that also. Discussion should happen, but that discussion should also be limited. Yes, ma'am.
Effective communication and active listening.
Yes, ma'am. I didn't get you.
Effective communication and active listening.
Effective communication or
Right, yes,
active
ma'am.
listening.
Very good, ma'am. Effective communication. So very good, ma'am. As we are teachers, we have to communicate it in the right sense. We have to communicate it in the right sense. We are not here to set a negative example to the children. As much as possible, we don't set a negative example. We see to the positive attitude of the children, and we always see to that it is being conveyed in the positive way, whatever it is. And of course, when we take up examples also, we don't take up examples that that are pessimistic. We always look forward to optimistic views. Yes, ma'am, that's true. Then, ma'am, somebody has mentioned in the chat. Yes, ma'am, math game, right? Yes, instead of only one person speaking and others all listening, that is a lecture method which is done usually in the colleges. And there, of course, we don't know how far it is effective. So now games can also be introduced either in the beginning of the class or at the end of the session. Why is this? Because when we start these games, of course, it will be like a warm-up for them. That is also nice. Or at the end of the session, to sum up what has been taught in that particular period, we can have a game. What happens is, it is up to me, it is personally, when we conduct games during the middle of the period, the entire period goes off in only conducting the games. And after that, teaching doesn't happen, or learning doesn't happen, or listening doesn't happen especially. So they have become so involved in only the games. So they pull us only in finishing the game and continuing with the game itself. That is up to me. I don't know whether all of you would agree that.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So it is always better to start the class with a small game, like a warm-up session, or towards the end of the session, just 5 minutes or 10 minutes. At the close of the session, we can have games. It can be mind games, or it can be any other games also. Yes, that is also there. Any other tool? Any other tool, teachers? Yes, ma'am. Show examples of real objects to the students. Example, cuboid. Of course, that comes under teaching aids. Can I consider that also as teaching aids? Yes, of course, these are teaching aids. Already we have discussed about it. Any other? Have you ever thought of conducting small mental ability tests to check where they stand? What we have actually imparted, whether they have understood. So here the understanding means I'm going to just measure their learning capacity. So small tests can be conducted, and of course they can be motivated to score more. It can be a minimal of just 5 marks. This can also be like a startup session or towards the end of the session. Just 5 marks, mental ability test within the stipulated time. Yes, ma'am. Some Girija ma'am has mentioned about performing quiz to make students recollect what is taught in the class. Yes, ma'am. That is also true. Animation videos can be done provided we have a facility to show that in the class. I don't know how many of your schools are provided with technical facilities inside the classroom. Of course, that can also be done. That can also be a supporting tool to make learning more effective. Yes, ma'am. So I think we have summarized what is going to be done in today's session. Yes, shall we proceed with Shobna ma'am?
Yes.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Next, we come to the principles of effective teaching. So what do you mean when we say principle of effective teaching? So the teaching has to be effective, isn't it? So whatever we do has to have a result. So that is what we mean when we say effective teaching. It's not that we have spoken in the class, so the children have understood. So effective teaching happens only when the purpose of teaching, which means the message has reached the children. So what are the general principles of effective teaching? we must create an active learning environment. So what do you mean by an effective learning environment? We just start the class with a silent prayer so that after a session or a period ends, we always see that the students are very noisy in the class. They are very chirpy. They want to stand up and they keep talking to the class, to their friends. So we just walk inside the class, and the purpose of having a very small prayer is to bring the class to a silence mode and then make the children to focus on the upcoming session so that some active learning can take place. So first, our job as a teacher is to create an active learning environment. Wish them a very nice good morning. Keep them in a cheerful mood. Give them some movement exercises, left, right, up, down, back, turn. They all enjoy doing it. So first, our job is to create an active learning environment and then focus their attention.
Here,
So once,
Shobana
yes,
ma'am, I
ma'am.
would also like to add on, the rooms must be well lit, airy. Please see to that. The classroom is airy and the classrooms are well lit so that children are in their comfortable pace to learn effectively, and also they are in the comfortable mode to listen to the teachers. If they are not comfortable sitting in the class, then there is no point in teaching anything, whatever may be. So see that the classroom is airy and well lit, and all the children are able to see the blackboard clearly. That is also very, very important. Yes, ma'am.
And next is to focus attention and connect knowledge. So like Charu ma'am said, always move from known to unknown. So you just don't start with the particular topic which you are going to teach them for the day because it is all new for them. So connecting the knowledge, that bridge must always happen for a few minutes. You must always move from the known to unknown. So make a quick recap of what was taught to them the previous class so that the students will organize their knowledge. The flow to today's class will be seamless, and then you teach the students on the skill what you're planning to teach for the day, and then you can ask questions and provide them timely feedback. This is very, very important because late feedback is of no purpose. And then demand quality, balance high expectations with student support. So you tell them, this is what I expect from you at the end of this class, and you should be able to exhibit this skill and give them motivation to learn through activities, through questions. We must really give them motivation to learn. Even if it's a difficult topic like long division, the children will be wondering, oh, now mathematics has become very difficult. That is what happens when long division is taken in the class. But we can always motivate the children by saying all it takes is just practice. They can always learn and communicate your message in a variety of ways, which means the same topic can be covered in different ways. So it is not that we stick only to one methodology. For example, division, we can take division in a variety of ways, using objects, using groups, using short division, by repeated subtraction, by long division. So all these methods of using variety of ways to achieve a common goal, a common concept or a common answer will always keep the child motivated, because one method may not be comfortable for a particular child. She might understand the visual method. She might understand the story method. She might understand the short division method. So we have to give the children, expose the children to a variety of ways through which the answers could be reached. So that is the specialty of mathematics especially. You have a variety of ways to arrive at the common answer, and then help students productively manage their time. This is, of course, when we are solving problems in the class. It is not that we give so many problems that they cannot do in the class. We give 3 or 4 sums which they can meaningfully solve in the class and then give us the answer so that we can give them their quality feedback. So these are all the general principles of effective teaching. So if any teacher wants to add any principle or any quality which is very important while teaching, you are free to add here. Yes, teachers. So what are the things that a teacher needs to have or needs to notice while she's teaching? Can any teacher add to this? Yes. Teachers, can you hear me?
We should engage with the students.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Engagement is also an important principle of effective teaching. Yes, very good. That creates an active learning environment. Yes, very good. Engagement with students. Yes, ma'am. These are all the principles of effective teaching.
Ma'am, I feel we should also help the student to self-assess so that they assess themselves and they keep on learning also in that way.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That is what, as Charu ma'am said, when we have mental max test for 5 marks, we just ask the students to exchange their notebooks with their partners and correct. So they love this exercise because they can act to be a teacher. They think they are doing the role play of a teacher. So they correct their friend's notebook and they total the marks. They put the marks out of 5, just like the teacher does for their answer and their answer sheet. So the children also come to know about the process as how the teacher also grades them. So when again they exchange their notebooks, the child always sees how her peer has assessed her. So it is almost like self-assessment, and she explains to her peer why she has given the answer as wrong, what is the mistake that the child has done wrong, so that she has written it as wrong. So this exchange of correction is very important, which we do at least once in a week in the class after giving a mental arithmetic test. So peer
learning is more effective. In fact,
Yes.
CBSE also recommends that peer learning can happen either in a group or as an individual also. That is very important for them to learn because they are more comfortable with their par than with the teachers many a times. So when some of them, they are not very open to come to the teachers and ask for the doubts or to clarify the doubts, what is actually the mistake they have done. But rather they would approach their friend or her partner to find out what is the mistake she has done and how she can correct it or what is actually the right answer. So many a times they feel free to speak to their friends, their partners especially. At least by then they learn what is the right answer and how it has to be evaluated or done.
This also helps the teacher in time management, because in a class of 40, to correct all 40 notebooks and give feedback, I think the entire period goes off. So when we give mental max test for like 10 minutes and exchange correction takes hardly 5 to 10 minutes. So with 15 minutes, the entire exercise is over and the teacher has the remaining period to teach something for the day. So this also saves a lot of time for the teacher in my experience.
Yes, ma'am. Somebody has mentioned in the chat, like moving around the class is everybody audible? Yes, that is also one of the tool, because we are checking whether when we move around the class, we come to know whether the child is really working on the sums, what we have taught them, or what we are expecting them to do it in the class. That will definitely give individual attention, because many a times teachers, they don't go to the child's place and find out whether she's doing it or not. We assume many a times we assume that they are doing, but if you look into the notebook, nothing will be there. They would have scribbled something, or they would have just started the question and they would have left it blank. So like ma'am has mentioned, if you go to their places and find out whether they're able to proceed, we will know whether they have understood the concept what we have taught in the class. So where they are struck, what is that that is lagging for them to proceed. So it is the responsibility of the teacher to give individual attention to those students. Definitely it has to be done in the class again. If it is more than 50% of the class, definitely the teacher has to teach the concept again in a better way. So this is actually an assessment tool for the teacher, in rather, because she has not conveyed in the manner that the child is expecting. That is why 50% of the class was not able to grasp. This happens when usually when we teach unitary method. I think all of you would have observed that. So say for example, the weight of 7 mangoes is given, and if they are directly asking the question, we find the weight of some 10 mangoes or 20 mangoes, they should actually do for class 5, I'm saying. When it is in the higher classes, of course, we do by direct method. Here, you have to find the cost of 1 and then find the cost of 20. So what, instead of doing that, what they do is directly multiply. Instead of multiplying the number by what is obtained by getting the value of 1, they directly multiply the cost of 7 into 20 and write the answer. Many a times this happens. Or they divide that value by 20 directly and give the answer. So these are all the common mistakes we have observed. So what is that the teacher has to do? Take a simple number. For example, take a 2-digit number. It need not be a 5-digit number, 6-digit number also. Take a simple 2-digit number. Explain the process again. Show by examples. Or if you take money and explain that concept, it will be even more clear for them. So try all possible means to impart the concept that the teacher expects the child to learn at the end of the period. So if not possible that particular period, the same concept can be extended for another period also, or 2 more periods also, till the child is comfortable in that particular concept. Of course, we are all rushing up with the portions. Never mind, we can spare some, 2 more periods on the difficult concepts. Nothing wrong. Yes. Next, Jennifer Das has mentioned making students to ask questions often to create new questions from our teaching. Yes. Only when the child questions, it reveals that they are grasping something or they are able to understand something. This why, what, how, where, all these questions should be definitely asked in the class. Only then we will arrive at a solution. I think all of you will accept this. Yes, teachers. If there is no questionnaire session in the class, then we will also definitely be at a stage where we assume that whatever we are doing is right. The teacher should be in a position to answer why, what, where, how, justify all these things. Yes, ma'am.
Now, next we will move on to the teaching methodologies. So what are the different methods by which we can teach? So teaching methodologies refer to a set of practices and principles used by teachers to make the process of teaching and learning highly effective for their students. So when our goal is to make our teaching an effective teaching, we have to use a variety of methods to reach to the child so that our set of learning objectives are met. So there are quite a lot of teaching methodologies which if we know that all these are there, we can pick up a suitable teaching methodology and then reach the students with the content. So now we can see what are the factors that decide the teaching methodology. So there are so many teaching methodologies, and what is that methodology that we are going to choose will depend on so many factors. So what are the factors? They are the learning outcomes. So what is that we need to do so that the learning objectives are met? So the teaching methodology will depend on the learning outcome. nature of the learners. So how the learners, nature of the learners means their age. For example, you cannot have a project work in class 1. So nature of the learners, whether they are very good in in English, whether they have a very sound, whether they are a class of well achievers, are they a class of low achievers, what is their age, all those comes under the nature of learners. And then of course, number of students in the class. If you have a lower number of students in the class, you can always go for a variety of activities because the number of tools you need is very less. And when you have the number of students more in the class, you have to follow a different strategy because the number of tools that can be given to all the students is not possible because then it will become highly expensive. So the number of students in the class definitely plays a role in the teaching methodology that we use, and availability of teaching aids, and then time, of course. So the methodology what we use must impart the learning outcome in that particular time or period, we say. We cannot keep extending it for say like a week or so because we have other topics also to cover. And then learners environment, which means from what background are they coming? Is it enough if I tell them once? Is it enough if I tell them twice? Do they need any support from the teacher's side? So all these factors and complex factors come into play when we decide the teaching methodology. So we have to assess all these factors in deciding what is the methodology I'm going to use to take my teaching to the class. So generally now in today's class,
Ma'am, just
Yeah.
a minute.
yes ma'am.
This go to the previous one, ma'am. And as teachers, we should be definitely aware of the learner's environment. Here, the child's environment at home, because it is very important for the child to have a, what to say, a comfortable or a suitable
Balanced.
environment for her or him to learn. So it is very important for the teacher to understand and know what is the environment that is going to help the child progress in that particular subject. If suppose the environment is not suitable, or if there is any drawback in giving a proper environment to the child at the school level or at the home level, we need to definitely take care of it. We'll have to try all possible means to make it set right from our end especially. I hope what I'm talking about, I think all of you are aware of this. All of you would have come across. Not many children have a very good environment at home to develop their skills in all the subjects. For that matter, it is not only subject, for all the subjects. So it is the duty of the teacher to find out what possible can be done from our end to make the child progress in that particular subject or overall development of the child holistically. So it is definitely maybe many a times what we think is if she is performing in our subject, okay, let's all finished. That is enough for us. But that is not the case. It may turn topsy-turvy at any time. So it is better to find out whether they are in a suitable environment. If not, speak to the child. The child needs any help from our side. It is our duty to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Now let us look at the teaching methodologies in primary school. So since we are all primary teachers here, today we will be focusing only on teaching methodologies that can be used in primary school. The first one is the teacher-centered instruction. This is the most oldest approach or the most conventional approach where we say we see everywhere. Here the teacher is the center of instruction. She gives the instruction and she expects the children to follow the instruction. So here all the responsibility of the learning environment rests with the teacher. She directs all the activities and expects the children to do the activities, and the arrangement is such that all the students face the teacher in a typical classroom setup. So you can see all the teacher is explaining the concept and the students passively absorb the information while the teacher is delivering it. So this is the old and the most conventional method which we do mostly in the classroom. So let us see the advantages and disadvantages of
Before
it
going to that
discussing.
advantages, why not the teachers discuss whether that method would be more effective, or like as you have mentioned, what are the advantages and disadvantages of that particular method? Yes, ma'am. Go back to that. Let teachers discuss that advantages and disadvantages. Yes, teacher. Yes, teachers. Teacher-centered instruction, where only the teacher speaks. The child is expected to only listen to the teacher, act according to the teacher's instructions, and perform her subject well. That is what is expected. So what are the advantages of this conventional method? Yes, teachers. Yes, teachers, you can speak on this.
So in this teacher-centered
How many
instruction,
of
the
us
teacher
follow only this, even now? Or at some stage, do we follow this? The floor is yours. You can discuss now about this, about the teacher-centered the instruction, or it can be named as a conventional method of teaching. Yes, ma'am, please. Somebody was talking.
Yeah, in the teacher-centered instruction, ma'am, the teacher can able to share more thoughts of her.
Okay, that is one advantage. So do you all
Yeah,
agree,
and
teachers? She says that the teacher can convey as much as possible to the children. She says that is one of the advantage. Okay, then.
Ma'am,
Okay.
that time
There is a message there saying that the teacher finishes the topic on time. So math teachers are always worried about completing the portions. So she says that time management, yes, another one has also supported. Yes. So you mean to say that these are the advantages, completing the portions, which is our utmost priority at some stage. Okay, completing the portions. And then you mean to say that the teacher can give lot of inputs to the children within that specified time. Okay, these are the advantages. Yes, of course, all of you can teach, speak about both advantages and disadvantages.
Ma'am, can I say?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Ma'am, when we use lecture like saying teacher-centered method is when we are trying to introduce a new topic. Only at that point of time, I feel it is effective. But as you said earlier, the interaction, the transaction should be two ways. So if we have only teacher-centered method, in that way we won't be able to understand whether the student has actually acquired the knowledge which we wanted them to. So I feel in that way it is disadvantageous.
Very true, ma'am. Very true. She's come to the point. Yes, at all times, this definitely will not work out. Like as you said, when we are introducing the concept, when we need the attention of all the students to be honest, yes, of course, we can do that for, may say like first part of the session, not the entire session, that also the first part of the session or a part of a session. Yes, after that, it should definitely be a two-way process. It should definitely be a two-way process. I do really agree with you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, our
I think all of you will agree with this.
meeting is
Teachers, I think all of you will agree with this because most of us follow that only. At some point of time when we are introducing a new concept, we wanted children to be attentive and listen to what we are conveying. When that is there, of course, they grasp the concept well. And after that, when we are recapitulating the topic or when we are emphasizing the topic in different tools, we expect the children to be active participant in the class. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, teachers, for all those
Anybody
inputs.
else?
I think
Somebody wants to say something? No, there was an yes, ma'am,
our
there is
meet-
a message there in the chat saying that students may get bored, they miss some key information. Yes, of course, if it's very monotonous, the teacher going on talking for 40 minutes or 45 minutes, definitely the attention span will not be there. According to the statistics, it says the attention span of the children is only 15 to 20 minutes maximum. Minimum can be less than 10 minutes also. It depends from individual to individual. We can't follow the principles of effective teaching. There is another message in the chat saying that disadvantage. We couldn't expect that learning outcome should be better. Yes, ma'am. That is all true. Yes, we do really agree.
Ma'am, may I say?
Yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Increase interaction among the students and provide immediate feedback. It is an advantage.
Is it the no, ma'am? I think you're not getting our point. Suppose if it is teacher centered, is it you are saying that it is an advantage, right?
Yes, ma'am.
In what way it is advantage?
Provides immediate feedback.
So for that, the teacher has to interact with the child. When she has to get the
Yes.
feedback, the teacher has to interact with the child, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So there, the interaction happens. Then it becomes a two-way process. Am I right, ma'am? Am I right, ma'am? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So this teacher-centric, what to say, teacher-centric instruction or teacher-centric method has its advantages as well as disadvantages. Of course, all the methods has its own advantages and disadvantages, and it is up to the teacher to pick up that particular methodology and adapt in the class. And the methodology what we adapt for one topic may not be effective for the other topic, and the methodology what we adapt for one section may not be suitable or it may not be effective for the other section, or the methodology what we adapt for one particular class may not be also suitable for another class. So all these we have to keep in mind, and we have to change the methodologies accordingly to make teaching learning process more effective.
I've just given a sample of advantages and disadvantages here. One
Yes,
thing
ma'am.
is teacher's role is as a facilitator when it is teacher centered, and teacher has more control over the class. So we would say when they are in a group, when they are given some project activity, naturally we will observe the noise level of the class is higher, much higher, and it is a little bit difficult to have class control. When it is teacher centered, you can have definitely a better control over the learning environment, because you are the only person who's there giving the instruction. And advantages, as some teacher pointed out, that beginning of the session or when we start teaching something, this method would be correct. Yes, of course, it's true. And the other place where it would be suitable is when we have a repetitive usage of basic skills. For example, we have taught the children what is multiplication in many ways, using activity, using experiential way, everything we have taught. But then when we want to give them expertise using a repetitive use of these basic skills, then we can give 5 sums on the board, which ask them to multiply, find the product of, we explain them using 5 sums. So when we want to, kind of help them internalize the concept using repetitive usage, I think teacher-centered method will be useful. So that's one more place where it is useful. And we can always motivate the students using rewards. So we always see that we give 5 questions on the board and say, let me see who is doing first. let me, I will give a clap to anyone who's finishing first, second, and third. There is always naturally excitement in the class, and children are motivated to complete all the 5 problems and bring it to the teacher, which motivates even the other children. So in all those cases, this method is advantageous. When you see the disadvantages, of course, it is there for all of us. There is no enough engagement with the student. So there might be a lack of, promoting with analytical thinking and problem solving skills, because the teacher is doing everything on the board. These are the advantages and disadvantages, and it is left to us to use it appropriately. So let us go discuss the next method, which is called SGI, which is small group instruction. So,
Shobna ma'am, I
yes,
would just
ma'am.
like to add one more point in the previous one, in the disadvantage. I think as math teachers, many a times we lose patience when children are not able to complete the sums that is given in the class within the stipulated time. So we end up writing the answers on the blackboard for the children to copy. Many a times we do that. Supposing, like Shobna ma'am said, if you are giving 5 problems or 6 problems in the class, and if they are not able to complete and only 5 minutes left for the session to get over, we teachers many a times, just because we wanted to complete the portion, the next day we would have planned something else for the children, or there may not be class the next day. So what we do is we write the answers on the blackboard. We solve the sums on our own and we leave it and come. We don't give the chance for the child to work the sums on their own, explore what is the difficulty level in that, and discuss it with the teacher the next day. So that is definitely a disadvantage when it is teacher centered. I think that also all of you will agree, because as math teachers, we always have the top priority of completing the portions. I think all of you will definitely agree, whether it is higher class maths or primary maths, completing the portion is a very big task for the math teachers. Right. Yes, ma'am. We'll move on to the next one.
The second one is SGI, or small group instruction. This we always, for example, in math lab, we always group students, say 5 or 6 students in a group around a small table. We give them a task, and they do the task, and we check and we assess the ability which they are able to display there. So small group instruction, this provides students with a reduced student ratio. So each students will interact very nicely with their own peer, asking for doubts, trying to understand, and more than that, learn by seeing their peer doing that skill. So this is the most important thing in small group instruction, and it allows teachers to work more closely with each student on a specific learning objective, and it is always very easy to check for understanding. Because we always see in the math lab, when the concept is not clear, they are not able to exhibit their skill in the math lab. So it is very easy for the teacher to check for understanding. For example, if we give them a number and we ask them to show it on the abacus, if they had not understood the place value and of the digits, they will not be able to put the correct beats in the abacus. So it is very easy for the teacher to check the understanding level of the student, because it is the activity is there for the students to do and observe, and the teacher to see whether they are doing it properly. So
Many times that ones and hundreds will be interchanged in the lower classes.
Yes.
Only
So
the
now
10
I
will be
think
correct.
yes. So any activity, we can group them like 6 or 7 in a group, and then take them to math lab, or of course in the class, and then ask them to do the activity. So I think now we can discuss the advantages and disadvantages of making the children in a small group and giving instructions.
Yes, teachers, like the previous one, what are the advantages and disadvantages of having small groups, either in the math lab or in the class itself? If the classroom is quite big, definitely it can be had in the classroom also, no issues. And supposing if you are taking them to the math lab, what are all the disadvantages and advantages of effective learning when they are in small groups.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Let me start with advantages of this small group instruction.
Yes.
First of all, students will get the comfortable and it improves their confidence level. And also it improves the communication skill. And some students may hesitate to come up with their doubts and to clarify their doubts with the teacher, by the teacher, so that this this is the place to clarify their doubts and everything. And also it helps to adopt the larger group of settings, and it improves the social adaptation skill also.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. As you have rightly mentioned, it increases the social advantage. That's what you have, adaptation, right? It increases the social adaptation skill amongst the children. Definitely, ma'am, because children need to learn that they have to, if they have to live in this world, they have to adjust with so many things. So this happens in their primary on the formative years itself, because they need to adjust with the peer if they have to prove something or if they have to solve something. So that is what is the one of the C says, according to the NEP skills, cooperation is also very important. If you have to collaborate, you have to cooperate. That is what is one of the C's that is mentioned in the NEP skills. So when they collaborate and when they cooperate, their critical thinking becomes better. They are able to communicate better, and they're able to come up with creative ideas. So all the C's are definitely emphasized, and it is enhanced when they are working in the small groups. Yes, ma'am, rightly said.
Ma'am, it increases curiosity of a students, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am, I do really agree. When they are in the groups, no, they definitely have lot of anxiety to what they are actually going to work on. Suppose if it is a project and if you give different topics to do that same project, they like exploring. And each one they come up with a different idea, but ultimately they all work together to give a presentation finally. So that the cooperativeness of the children is definitely seen when they are in small groups. Yes, ma'am, sure. I do agree with that. Anxiety and eagerness actually is very much essential in the formative years for them to learn more. Yes, create good leadership qualities. Yes, that is also there. Yes, ma'am. That do the smart one in the group frequently answer and the other one loses their chance. Yes, that is one of the disadvantage. Yes, ma'am. Yes, there's another answer. They understand easily because they are at the same level. So they are able to understand better from their peers. Satisfaction of self-learning. Yes. Very good, ma'am. I do agree with that. At the end of the session or at the end of the day, they are very much satisfied that they have proved something. And they are very proud enough to say that they have achieved something in that particular subject, in making those projects or doing that activities or doing a presentation or whatnot.
Few advantages I have listed here.
Yes,
that it allows teachers to provide targeted, differentiated instruction to small group of students. So we can always form a group with the high achievers and then give them something more difficult to do, and then group low achievers together, and then start from the basic level so that their understanding of the concept is more clear. So this is an excellent setup to give a differentiated instruction to the class. And as someone just suggested, definitely promotes the students' social adaptation skills, their communication skills, their confidence levels, everything it improves. So disadvantages, it takes more time and effort to prepare materials and organize workstation for each student group. I think this is the one major thing which the teacher has to face, because immediately when you say you form a group, there is total commotion. They always want to sit with their friends. They want to know where they want to sit, what they want to take. So all this commotion will be there for 10 minutes. So we're pulling each other's friends and all that is there. It is a big thing in the class to arrange and make them settle will definitely take time. So we have to give leeway for that time and then organize the activity, because we cannot plan some activity for the entire 40 minutes of the class, because all this is definitely going to take time and effort.
So here the teacher can plan well in advance. That is why the teacher has to do a meticulous planning. So she has to have a plan like how they are going to be formed in group. So on that spot, she cannot confuse herself and confuse the children by asking them to form groups as in how they like. So she has to have a plan, either odd numbers go into one group or multiples of 5 go in one group or multiples of 3 go in one group, like that. She has to plan and make them into groups. So this is actually a big task for the teacher also, to plan the previous day itself. If she has planned it in a better way, the groups that are formed will also be of all caliber, that I would say. Not all the good ones in the same group and all the low achievers in the same group, and not like that. It should be a mixture. It should be a mixture of all the calibers.
Yes. And as another teacher pointed out, in a heterogeneous group, when somebody it's always easy for high achievers to act like a leader and then lead the group with the kind of leadership role, which is positive. But then when it becomes a hindrance to others' performance, then it can be a disadvantage, especially for introverts who are bit reluctant to participate in a group. So these are all the advantages and disadvantages of small instruction, small group instruction. So next methodology we will come see is the student-centered or the constructivist approach. So here in the student-centered or the constructivist approach, it's all about the student at the center of the class. So what do you mean when we say student-centered approach? For example, we are doing an activity in filling. So we can also say the children to bring articles, put a price tag for the articles, leave it on their table, and then bring fake money and then set up a shop, so that children can some children are selected to be shop owners, some children can walk in as customers, give the money, take the articles, get the balance, and then make a journal in their max notebook to say what they have bought, how much they paid, what is their balance. Supposing if this is an activity, then it will all be about students only. The teacher has no role in explaining or making a note of what they are doing. Of course, the teacher will explain the activity, but once the activity has been explained and the execution starts, it's all about the student there. So in student-centered approach, student-centered classrooms include students in planning. So the students plan everything, what they will bring, how much they will price it, who will be the shopkeeper, who will walk in as customers, everything is planned from the student side. And of course, the implementation, they will take their own corners in their classroom and then assessments. So teacher must become comfortable with changing their leadership style from directive to consultative. So in that classroom, where in this particular setup, imagine 4 corners of the classroom, the child has set up 4 shops with all the articles she brought from home has been built, and the children, each shop has 5 children walking in with fake money to buy things, and then they pay money and then she gives the balance. So all this takes place where the teacher must be comfortable, because in that particular session, teacher is not the leader. She is merely a director, or she is only offering consulting tips to children on how to go about with this activity. So that is a real change for the teacher from her usual leadership style, because she has to come one step down and to the level of the children, because in that activity, if we show our leadership style and then keep directing children, you buy this, or too much of involvement, then it will not be a success. The student must be free to do what they want, because this activity is a student-centered activity. So involving the learners in these decisions places more responsibility and ownership. For example, even when their money falls, they will be like, oh, my money has fallen down, which is what they need to learn in the real world, to keep their money carefully, to decide what objects to buy. So often we see in the malls where students demand, I want this. So this is the value-based education we will give, where they can buy articles depending on the amount of money they have, and not buy something which is we can say which is more expensive, because the toys are already built there. So all these skills and there are so many decisions that takes place in the child's mind when this activity takes place. So all these cannot be taught in the class using formulas or using problems. So all these hidden values will be taught to the children in a student-centered. So yes, teachers, can you add to the advantages and disadvantages of this student-centered approach?
Yes, ma'am. There is a chat saying that students will enjoy learning. Yes. Give role play activity. Yes, we do agree with that.
They're all role playing as sellers, buyers, customers. Yes. You can always, when you do this in class 4, you can always have a banker. You can also have a banker where the student can borrow money, and then while they're returning, they can give it with some interest and see what is their overhead cost, whether they are having profit or loss. All those things you can increase as you have this activity for class 4 and class 5.
Yes. Many a times children would also like to act as numbers. Yes, that is also there. We have observed that when we deal with numbers topic, that is only arithmetic, they like to act like numbers. So that type of activities can also be done. Not only this money-based topic, this also can be done effectively with student-based constructive learning.
And also, more than teaching and learning, they can able to develop their skills in extracurricular or co-curricular activities in the class itself.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We do agree. Chance for the student to operate monitoring by the help of a teacher. Yes, ma'am. Ask them to do the sums on the board. Yes, that also we do. See, when the child is asked to work out on the blackboard, they feel what to say. They are like teachers, and many of them, they like to use the chalk on the blackboard. And once they are confident, they would be asking for more number of chances. That is also there.
And it could also be a disadvantage to introverts, because once you call the introverts, they come, stand there shivering, and we know that they know the concept, but they are being introverts. They feel more, they lose their confidence when they have to face the class.
Yes,
that is also there. So when we call a child and she's not able to do it on the blackboard, it always doesn't mean that she doesn't know it or she has not understood the concept. We have to check her notebook to actually find out. Because some introverts we have always seen will not feel comfortable coming and doing a particular problem on the board.
Actually, it is also considered as an advantage where the child is able to face the situation boldly, whether knowing or not. Some of them, they come near the blackboard, they try, and after they are not able to succeed in completing the sum, they ask the help of others, or immediately the other one says, yes, you have gone wrong, you have to correct it here. Many a times we see children ending up with wrong answers, not able to identify where they have gone wrong. So in fact, when the teacher interrupts in between and if she starts correcting it, they feel very happy. And next time they ask for another chance, saying that they will be able to complete the sum without the help of the teacher. That is also there.
Now we would go to the advantages, which a few we have listed. Students learn and develop a sense of responsibility when it is student-centered activity. Teachers avoid transmission of knowledge directly, and students have a chance to stimulate their analytical thinking. So the disadvantage, risk of facing behavior problems by giving students independence. As I said, the commotion level in the class will be at an all-time high if it is not supervised properly. So this is one of the disadvantage, especially at the primary level, where class control entirely lies in the responsibility of the class teacher. And student-centered approach can be difficult for teachers to master, and student might miss key information because they are working in groups. All the major key information has to be given prior to the activity using the teacher-centered methodology, and then only it has to move to the student-centered activity, so that all the key information has been passed on to the students evenly, so that this activity goes on very smoothly. So next we have the most popular method which we all use, which is the project-based learning. So I think all of us use this project-based learning in one stage or the other, even at the primary level. So here, teachers, we give them projects in which students need to acquire some knowledge, research, think what they have to do, and then evaluate how they are going to do it, analyze, and they have to make decision, collaborate with their peers, and then they complete a project. So as teachers, we what the topics which we choose as for the projects has something should be something meaningful, and it should relate to the real world. So these are the conditions for the project-based learning. I'm sure as teachers, we would have given our students a lot of project works to do. And this method also obviously has its own advantages and disadvantages. I think we can discuss it before I'm listing what I have listed.
Ma'am, I think we have discussed about this project based initially.
Yes,
when we are talking about that, I think we can go to the advantages and disadvantages.
Yes, ma'am. So project based advantages, the teacher might provide scaffolding. Scaffolding means a little bit of support on the initial stages. Like if you give them a project, they would be asked, what is the material I must use? What is the size of the project? All those scaffolding small tips we can give to the child, and a small bite-sized project initially to help them to start off. And cooperative learning is enhanced by in this method because the children are working in groups, and presenting and speaking about the project or the product which they have done also improves their social skills. Disadvantages, it's time consuming and it requires good classroom management skills. So whenever we want to evaluate a project, we should time it properly and give them enough time to do the project. So it is not like that at the end of the term, we see that, oh, we have not done a project, and then give them a project work and tell them to bring it the next day. So giving them time is more important in a project work, and students without experience in a group may have difficulties to adapting roles and negotiating. So again, this is with respect to the introverts. So these are the samples of few project work which we did in our school. I think this belongs to class 2 where they learned about shapes. So this girl did a model about Amar Jawan, and she gave a speech about the soldiers of our country and the need to respect them, and how she wants to be a soldier when she grows up and serve the nation, which in turn not only imparts mathematical knowledge but also inspires other children in many other ways. So this is what the CBSE is requesting teachers us to do, to give a holistic education to children. And here is the other child who did a model of a robot using different shapes, and was explaining as to how robots could be useful in our lives in future, which is also inspiring for science and students who are interested in maths and science. So we can give interesting projects to students, which will help them for a holistic development. So next method is the Montessori method, which is very popular in preschools and lower elementary grades, which is in class 1 and class 2. This method is full of activities using materials. So this is called as the Montessori method. Class 1 and class 2 can greatly benefit from this type of methodology. I think class 1 and class 2 definitely we are using the abacus, and then we have the blocks like this to teach them place values. So these are the ones, the tens and the hundreds. So all these Montessori materials we can use to teach the children, especially in class 1 and class 2. Of course, there are a lot of advantages in this. They can understand because they can visualize mathematics. They can work independently. It creates a positive learning environment. And because of the visualization of mathematics, the concept is very clearly understood. Disadvantages, of course, it is very expensive, especially when you have a large classroom of say 40, 50, 60. It is not possible to buy 60 kids or 40 kids, and it can be expensive. And teachers might find it very difficult to ensure whether all the children have tried the activity, whether they have understood the activity. So it takes a lot of time, because then the activity, when every child has to do it, then it takes more time compared to other methods. Now, the next method we have is the inquiry based learning. So just now Jennifer ma'am said, the more they ask questions, the more the children will learn. So this is the basis of inquiry based learning. So we give, say for example, when we are taking addition, subtraction, we can say to the children to come up with her own word problems. So it is not that we have to form our own word problem and ask the children to do. We can ask the children to give us a word problem where addition is being used and then write it on the board. They will enjoy doing it because it is a question from them. So inquiry based learning encourages children to ask questions. It prioritizes student asking questions, ideas and analysis. From a student point of view, inquiry based learning is very important because it helps her in her creative thinking, reasoning. And from a teacher's point of view, inquiry based learning is very important because she can understand whether a child has understood. Supposing we are asking a question to the child which has addition in it, and she gives us a question which needs us to do subtraction to find out the answer. So which means we can understand that she has not understood the concept and give her a proper feedback. So the child also understands. So we must always encourage students to ask questions and support them through the investigative process. So now we have, I'll come to that slide later. For inquiry based learning, for examples, we can use something called arithmegons in class. Arithmegons are basically polygons with circle numbers on each vertex. So the vertex will have circles with numbers in them, and in between the vertex, the lines of the polygons will have square numbers, so that the sum of the vertices will be in the square. So I hope you have understood. See, in this triangular arithmegon where I'm showing, the vertices are having 9, 3 and 1. So the square boxes which are in the line have 9 plus 3. Here we have 12. 9 plus 1. Here we have 10. 3 and 1. We have 4. So we can give the numbers and ask them to fill in the triangular arithmegon. So same thing goes for the pentagonal arithmegon. And I would like now all of you to have a small activity. I want you all to find out the numbers that go into the vertex of this arithmegon.
Ma'am, this can be given as an assignment today. This is your assignment. Tomorrow we will discuss about this in the class. Just make a note of it. We will discuss the answer tomorrow in the class. Yes, Shobna ma'am.
Yes, now we have the advantages and disadvantages of
Anyway, when we are
the-
sharing this PPT, the question will be there. So we will discuss about this answer tomorrow in the class before we could start that session.
Yes, ma'am. So now with the advantages and disadvantage of the inquiry method, as we all know, it develops critical thinking and problem solving skills. Exposure to various methods, because each child has a different way to solve the problem. Student will learn to seek their own answers to questions, because the questions are from them. They know how to find the answer. So they develop research skills also at a very young age. Disadvantages is when a student gives a question and the other child doesn't understand or feels it is too high for her, the level of anxiety can be higher, and low achievers can feel a loss of motivation because they cannot come up with original questions. So quick thinkers will benefit definitely from this method as compared to slow learners. And because of that, there would be a reluctance to participation from the slow learners side. And the next one, which is a very recent one, is the flipped classroom. So what do you mean by a flipped classroom? When we say flipped classroom, it means that the teaching already happens elsewhere, not in the classroom, because usually teaching happens in the classroom and assessment follows. So now in flipped classroom, teaching happens elsewhere. So how can you do that? You can give a video. Supposing you're going to teach odd and even numbers, you can give a link to the students that describes what is an odd and even number, so that they see the video, understand the concept of what is odd and even number even before coming to the class, even before you have taught them, so that your job in the class becomes very easy. So this is the flipped classroom on a primary level. So flip represents 4 pillars of learning. This is flexible environment, learning culture shift, which means they are doing self-learning and the learning doesn't happen in the class, intentional content and professional educator. So what is the use of flipped classroom? When they come to the class, they already have say about 70% idea of about what odd and even numbers are. So your job becomes very easy. It is only further explanation that you need to give in class. So it allows more time in class to be devoted to active learning than instruction, which means you can explain and then start off by asking them to distinguish between odd and even numbers. And what are the advantages? They have more control over their learning. They can learn at their own pace and time, isn't it? And it promotes, it is of course student-centered, and it promotes collaboration also, because they will come and discuss in the next class whether they have, each one of them have understood what the teacher had asked them to learn. So disadvantages, it's difficult to implement as students have unequal access to technological resources, or even if the student have access to technological resources, we cannot be sure that the child has done the activity and has come to the class with that 70% of knowledge. So that is the main disadvantage here. So next is cooperative learning. Cooperative learning is similar to project-based learning, except that other groups also benefit from the learning. It is like think, pair, share, and the jigsaw approach. So the think, pair, share approach is like you give the questions. If 4 children are there in the group, 2 children form a group and they think, they pair and they do the project, and the children 3 and 4 also share and do a project. Now children 1 and 2 speak up, exhibit their project and talk it to the class. The same way with children who are number 3 and 4. So either group learns from each other, so that at the end of the day, all 4 children benefit. So that is think, pair and share, which is same like project work, but it is only that few students are paired together. That is the cooperative learning. And when it is done on a big scale, like more than 2 children, we call it as jigsaw method, which means all the activities are separated to each child. And then it comes together as a group. And then they exhibit the work of the group, which is the jigsaw method. So it has advantages, which is same as for project method. They improve their social skills, they improve critical thinking. Disadvantage, if one student in the group does not comply or does not have active participation, then the entire group gets affected. So because when you pair, when it's a heterogeneous group, there might be slow learners and the group might be affected. So these are the advantages and disadvantages. Next, we have personalized education. So we all know that personalized education is tailored to the student. It is on a one-on-one basis. This is usually used when we have remedial classes. So we all have remedial classes for children who are very weak. So it is a special course to identify their deficiency and help them overcome the deficiency in specific skills, abilities, and knowledge. So advantages, special attention is given to students because the classes are one-on-one, and it promotes empathy for the child. It improves the relationship between the student and the teacher, and even with the parents. We see in the remedial classes, we always give feedback to the parents. Disadvantages is, of course, it is very time consuming and it's very demanding, and it cannot be done to all the children in the class. So this is about the personalized education methodology. So we have come to the end of all the methodologies which could probably be used for primary. So the last question would be, which is the best method of teaching? I think we all agree that there is no one best method of teaching, because there are the teaching methodology has to be based on the learning outcomes. So it has to be a mix of all these methodologies based on the learning environment for that particular day.